There's a moment most empaths recognize. You're sitting across from someone, a friend, a partner, maybe even a stranger, and you feel something shift inside you. Not just empathy, something deeper. Like their pain just moved in. Like their grief found a room in your chest and unpacked its bags. And you think, what is wrong with me? Here's what's actually happening. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are, psychologically speaking, at the very beginning of one of the most profound journeys Carl Jung ever mapped. He called it individuation. And once you understand what it actually means for someone like you will never look at your sensitivity the same way again. Because Jung didn't just describe this process for monks or mystics or people in therapy for decades. He described it for people who feel everything. People who carry others' weight without knowing why. People who keep losing themselves in relationships, in emotions, in the invisible pull of other people's needs. That's you. And this video is your map. Stay with me, because what I'm about to walk you through completely reframes what your sensitivity is actually for. Let's start with the word itself, because individuation sounds cold and clinical, and what Jung meant by it is anything but. Individuation comes from the Latin individuus, meaning undivided. So at its core, individuation is the process of becoming whole. Not perfect, not healed in the sense that nothing hurts anymore. Whole, meaning the parts of you that were split off, suppressed, or handed over to other people get reclaimed. And here's what makes this so specific to empaths. Most psychological frameworks talk about individuation as a solo inner journey. But Jung understood something that most people completely miss, that highly sensitive, emotionally porous people don't just struggle with their own unconscious. They struggle with everyone else's too. You absorb, you merge, you feel the grief at the party that everyone else is successfully ignoring. And because of that, your individuation journey has a layer that most people never have to face. Learning to tell the difference between what is yours and what you absorbed from someone else. That distinction, it changes everything. Now, Jung broke individuation into phases, not rigid stages, but movements. Think of them less like steps on a staircase, and more like weather systems passing through. The first one is what he called the encounter with the persona. The persona is the mask you built for the world. And for empaths, this mask almost always looks the same. The helper, the peacekeeper, the one who holds space for everyone. Sound familiar? The reality is that mask isn't fake. It's a real part of you, but it's not all of you. And the problem for empaths is that the persona gets reinforced every single time someone says, "You're so understanding," or "I can always come to you." You learned early that your emotional attunement kept you safe. Maybe it kept conflict away. Maybe it made a parent more stable. Maybe it made you valuable in a world that otherwise made you feel too strange, too sensitive, too much. So the mask fused with the face. And at some point, and I want you to really sit with this, you stopped knowing where the mask ended and you began. That's not a flaw. That's a wound. And it's the exact wound that the individuation journey is designed to heal. But here's what most people completely miss. The next phase is the one almost no one wants to enter. Jung called it the encounter with the shadow. The shadow is everything you rejected about yourself. The anger you decided wasn't acceptable. The neediness you buried under decades of being the strong one. The selfishness, and I mean healthy self-interest, that never got permission to exist. For empaths, the shadow is enormous. not because you're more damaged than other people, but because the very trait that makes you an empath, your extraordinary sensitivity to others, also made you extraordinarily skilled at suppressing yourself. You felt everyone else's discomfort so acutely that you learned to preemptively eliminate the parts of you that cause discomfort in others. Over years, maybe decades, you shoved so much into the shadow that it got heavy. And this is crazy. That weight doesn't disappear. It comes back through the people you attract. Jung had a concept for this: projection. When something lives in your shadow, you don't experience it directly. You experience it out there, in other people. This is why empaths who've suppressed their anger keep attracting rageful partners. This is why empaths who buried their neediness end up with people who are completely emotionally unavailable. The unconscious is trying to show you what you won't look at directly. It's not punishment. It's actually a kind of mercy, the psyche throwing up a mirror and saying, "Here, look at this." Shadow work for an empath isn't just a self-improvement exercise. It's the psychological foundation of everything. Because until you reclaim what you've projected, until you can say, "I have anger, I have needs, I have self-interest," you will keep outsourcing those parts of yourself to the people around you, and you will keep being drained by them. Now, from the consequence of integrating the shadow comes the third phase, and this is where it genuinely gets extraordinary. Jung called it the encounter with the self, capital S. Not the ego, the small, defended, daily life self that worries about what people think. The self is the deeper organizing center of the psyche. Jung believed it was the part of you that always knew who you were, even when you forgot. For empaths, contact with the self often arrives through very specific experiences. Dreams that feel more real than waking life. Moments in nature where the noise in your head suddenly stops. That rare feeling of being completely in yourself, not in someone else's emotional field, not performing, not managing, just deeply, quietly present. That's not a random experience. That's the self making contact. And individuation, the entire journey, is about building a conscious, stable relationship with that center. So that when the emotional storm comes, when you're sitting across from someone and their grief tries to move in, you have a floor beneath you. You can be present with them without becoming them. You can feel without dissolving. You might be wondering, how long does this actually take? Jung was honest about this in a way that self-help culture almost never is. He said, individuation is not a destination. It's a lifelong orientation. You're not trying to arrive somewhere. You're trying to keep moving toward wholeness, and the direction matters more than the speed. Some people spend years circling the same shadow material before it integrates. Some people have one dream that cracks everything open overnight. What matters, seriously speaking, is that you're in relationship with the process. Because the alternative is what Jung called unconscious living, reacting from wounds you don't recognize, absorbing emotions you never examine, attracting mirrors of your shadow and calling it fate. For an empath, unconscious living doesn't look like numbness. It looks like exhaustion. It looks like giving everything and having nothing left. It looks like a life that's full of other people's feelings and completely empty of your own. Individuation is the way out. Not out of your sensitivity, never that. Out of the unconscious grip it has on you. Your sensitivity, fully integrated, is not a burden. Jung believed the most individuated people were often the most sensitive because they had developed the capacity to hold enormous complexity without collapsing under it. That's the wounded healer becoming the conscious oracle. That's the empath who no longer loses herself in the room. That's where this journey ends up, if you're willing to walk it. If this landed for you, I want you to do one thing right now. Not tomorrow, right now. Ask yourself, what emotion have I been most afraid to admit I feel? That's your shadow knocking. That's your individuation journey asking if you're ready. If the answer is yes, this channel is built for exactly that. Every video goes deeper. Every video gives you real Jungian tools, not surface-level advice, not generic affirmations. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. And if you want to go even deeper right now, the next video in this playlist explores the shadow in full, specifically why empaths have the most complex relationship with it and what happens when you finally stop running from yours. I'll see you there.